We've been doing a series of candidate forums throughout the election season here now, probably well over a month. We've had a variety of guests on the show that are running for office here locally in the St. Cloud metro area. We've had all of the different wards for the 4 wards for St. Cloud. This is the last of the forums, and now we're focusing on Ward 3. So we have the 2 candidates here from Ward 3. The incumbent, John Libert, is here. John, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for coming in. And then also the challenger, Paul Brandmire, is here as well. Paul, thank you for coming in. Good afternoon to you as well.
Good afternoon.
So let's talk a little bit. First of all, we'll talk about where the ward is. I describe it as the northwestern part, far western part of the city of St. Cloud. Does that probably describe it best, John?
Pretty much. You take from the railroad tracks north and from about 10th Avenue west. So, yeah, we're the west part of St. Cloud and northwest.
Northwest St. Cloud. So let's talk a little bit about who you folks are. We'll start with you, Paul. Talk a little bit about who you are and why you decided you wanted to run for St. Cloud City Council.
Well, who I am. I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and joined the service at the age of 18, did 21 years, traveled around the world, mostly in Europe, Middle East. When I retired, I took a job with Home Depot, brought me up to the upper Midwest back in 1998. They offered me Chicago, Detroit, or Minneapolis, and given those 3 choices, I chose Minneapolis. My dad actually is from the Minnesota area. He's born and raised in Waseca, so I do have Minnesota roots. In fact, I have an aunt and uncle live right here in St. Cloud. So met and married a local girl, and now I can't seem to leave.
Okay.
So I've been here about 20 years.
Okay. So have you run for office before?
I did run for Minnesota House a few years ago, but Jim Knobloch then decided that he wanted his seat back, and so we went to the endorsing convention, and he beat me after three votes, and so I think I did pretty well considering he had the money, the experience, the name recognition. I was just some schmo. But
so why run for St. Cloud City Council now?
Well, I was looking at it, there were a few decisions that the council had made that I did not feel comfortable with. I didn't like the direction that it was going, and I heard a lot of other comments from people that I know and trust, and associates and friends and so forth. And we kind of thought, it just doesn't sound quite right. And I'm one of these guys that says, you can either sit back and complain about it, or you can get involved and try and change it. And so I chose the latter. I decided to get involved. It took some time to come to that conclusion, that decision, but I just didn't like the direction that some of the things were going.
Okay. So also we have the incumbent here, John Libert. Talk a little bit about who you are, John, and why you want to continue to be on the St. Cloud City Council.
Well, I'm happily married to my wife, Linda. I have 3 successful daughters, a super little grandson. I've been on the council for 11 years. I'm retired. Was at Ike Motor Company for 39 years. Why I want to be on the council, why I want to continue. I've got one more term left in me. I'm not going to do it after. If I win, this will be the end of it for me. But there's a few things I want to get done. I'm proud of what I've done in the past. I was co-chair of the governor's fishing opener. I've taken on extra responsibilities trying to make city of St. Cloud a better place. And there's things that need to be tweaked, and I know where they need to go, and I know what needs to be done, and I want to get it done.
All right. So back to you, Paul. You say you're not happy with some of the decisions the council's made, the direction the council's going. Can you be a little more specific about what you're talking about there?
Well, I didn't like the way they handled the moratorium that Jeff Johnson put forward. I think that regardless of how you feel about actual immigration or refugee resettlement, I think just the way they handled that, they kind of backdoored him. Protocol was that you present it to your council members. I mean, this is my understanding of it. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think so. But anyway, and Jeff did that. Jeff presented the moratorium resolution to the council, and everybody reviewed it. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Gerger brought forward this other thing, kind of blindsiding him. I thought that was kind of dirty pool. I do think that anytime that you have something that's sucking down tax dollars, I think you have a right as a taxpayer to say just what exactly are we spending money on. Maybe we should kind of maybe put this on hold a little bit, take a look at it, see what it's costing, what we're paying for, what we're getting for our money, and decide whether or not we support it. Whether or not we want to further spend more of our hard-earned money, because money that we're spending on whatever program, whether it's parks or police or refugees or what have you, money that you're spending on other programs is money that I'm not sending to my kids to put them through college. It's money that I'm not taking my family on vacations. It's money I'm not spending on steaks instead of on hamburgers, things like that. It is my money, and I have a right to know how it's being spent. And if I don't like the way it's being spent, I have a right to say so.
John, can you respond to that? To talk a little bit about the, I think it was about a year ago at this time when Councilmember Johnson brought the moratorium up. The rest of the city council kind of reversed it on him and brought their own moratorium up. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you voted the way you did?
Well, the moratorium was a publicity stunt by Mr. Johnson. Plain and simple, because we've had 12 attorneys look at what he was trying to do, and it was illegal, unconstitutional. And all it would do is give the city of St. Cloud a reputation of being a hatred, bigoted community. And it didn't make any sense to do that, because we're trying to expand things. We're trying to get people, college kids to stay here. We're trying to get businesses to come here. And if you have that type of attitude and you say that you're going to ban immigrants, which you can't, it was a publicity stunt. Mr. Johnson had TV stations lined up and radio stations lined up to come to do that. And he fully knew that it was not legally possible to do. So it was a publicity stunt, and Mr. Gerger brought forward his welcoming statement, and basically we agreed to it other than Mr. Johnson, just because it was the right thing to do. When you have all these radio stations here, what image do you want? Do you want to be a racist, bigoted community, or do you want to be welcoming community? And that's the reputation. That's the thing we have to fight, is bad reputation.
To Paul's point, though, I mean, Jeff Johnson didn't know that welcoming committee statement or community statement was going to happen until it was presented to him in the middle of a city council meeting. Right?
Absolutely, but how are you going to handle stopping the publicity going out, the stunt that he was doing?
Paul, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, actually I do, because there's a difference between immigrants and refugees, okay? Once they've gone out of a refugee situation, they're no longer refugees. Then they're migrants, they're immigrants. And it was not a race thing, because refugee is not a race, Somali is not a race, Islam is not a race. So it's not racist. And I think for people to be throwing out terms out there is disingenuous, and it shouldn't be done. It's not a hate thing. All right, for instance, say that my daughter's getting married, okay? And she and her husband are sitting around the kitchen table, or, fiance are sitting around the kitchen table, and they're talking about, well, we're going to have a DJ, and we're going to have 20 people there, and we're going to have, get some stuff from Walmart or whatever, because they can't afford anything more. Well, I said, well, maybe I'll help you out here, I'll give you some money. All right. So now all of a sudden, now it's a full course, catered meal. There's 200 people on a live band and so forth. Well, as they're starting to work down these things, I'm thinking, whoa, what's this costing me? Because all of a sudden I'm on the hook for it, right? Well, it's easy to spend other people's money, but that doesn't make me, if I say, we need to stop and take a look at what this is costing, that doesn't mean that I hate my daughter. It doesn't mean that I hate my future son-in-law. It doesn't mean that I hate weddings. I'm not a wedding phobe. I'm not a daughter-mist. The thing is that if it's costing a certain amount of money, we have a right to say how much it's costing. And if it's my money, I have a right to say how it's spent. That doesn't mean I hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. I don't even know these people.
John, is the city of St. Cloud spending money on either its new immigrants or refugees, whatever you want to call them? Is the city of St. Cloud spending money on that?
Well, of course we are, because we plow the streets and the immigrants go on the streets. They use garbage. We do that. We're not spending any extra money. There's nothing in the budget specifically for any immigrants or immigration or anything like that. I just wanted to respond a little bit about being on the council and signing a moratorium. You're speaking for the rest of the citizens of St. Cloud, and I don't think the rest of the citizens of St. Cloud want us to sign that. And that was my issue with it. If you're signing something for the city as a city council member, you're representing your ward. And and talking to enough people, they don't want to get involved with it. They want their life to go on as normal and not have the impression. It's like a billboard. You only see a couple words out of that thing. And that anti-immigration was just, it was wrong impression right away, because it's just a short thing, because nobody ever reads the whole thing. It's the impression, and the impression is a big thing.
There is, a divide in this community, but this issue is in our community. Is there a way to bring both sides together, to move past this issue? Is there a way to get beyond this issue?
Well, being on the council for the last year, listening to the anti-immigration people and the immigrants trying to defend themselves, that's not the forum you can do that, because it's them against us, and polarizes everybody. So I think you have to go on a one-to-one basis or a smaller situation and talk to people. And this anti-immigration stuff has got to stop, because we're eliminating a lot of conversation. We can't do it because everybody's defending each other, and that's not a good thing.
Paul, how about you? What would satisfy you on this issue as far as the city is concerned, the city government is concerned?
Well, I actually agree with John. We need to have a conversation, and that's not happening because everybody's pointing fingers and calling names. But it's both sides, and again, it's not an anti-immigrant. There's a lot of immigrants that have been coming to this community for hundreds of years. And for John to say, well, that we're only presenting, that we're representing the people, we didn't want to, represent people and say that we're anti this or anti that. Well, what are you doing by saying, by going around the back door and saying, because there's a huge population out there that says enough's enough too. There's people that have lived here and settled here and made this community what it is for a couple hundred years, multi-generational, and now other folks are coming in, and they're coming in by the thousands. That it's just too many. We got to stop. We got to integrate them. We have to make them part of the community, and once they're part of the community, then we can take a look at it and say, okay, well, maybe we can open the spigot a little bit more again and let more in. But right now, it's like trying to shove too much down a funnel. It's clogged, and like John was just saying, there's a lot of anger and a lot of animosity, a lot of distrust. And the only way to get over that is to talk and to work with people.
All right, we have to take a break. We'll come back and have more of our candidate forum in Ward 3 after our news update.